if you give a dad a podcast, then it would be of you to give it a spin or two. I'll go to your room. I'm in my room grounded, but I got a podcast on.
All right, everybody. Thank you for coming back to this show. My name is Jared. I am the host of If You Give a Dad a Podcast. I am very excited to talk with my guest today. He is a voice actor, director, producer, and writer. He has been in all kinds of stuff. To name a few, he's in My Hero Academia as Gran Torino. He is also been in Gotcha Man, One Piece, Fullmetal Alchemist, just to name a few, even Dragon Ball Z Kai. And that's barely even scratching the surface. And I am talking about Charlie Campbell. Man, how are you doing tonight?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. I am very excited for this. You know, we've been trying to get this set up for a minute and everything. So we're finally here.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, and like you said before, we got plenty of oxygen too. So
that's right. You know, I never have an interview without some oxygen handy.
Yeah.
Tried it in a sealed compartment one time and it just didn't turn out right.
So we're kind of just going to get started here. And you wear a lot of hats when it comes to the voice acting community and when it comes to animation and things like that. You like when I first ran across like your page and figured out who you were and things like that, and saw some things on TikTok when it came to you and everything. I knew you from My Hero, you know, and then I got to digging into it and everything. And I was like, wow, he does a lot of different things, you know, because you are a producer, you are a writer, you are a director when it comes to all of this now.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot of digging to be done. I started making my mound a long time ago, and you know, you can dig down pretty deep.
So what actually led you to this? How did you get started in this world?
You know, it's funny, in a roundabout way, I guess what got me into this world was music.
Okay.
Because ever since I was a little kid, I've always loved music, and I learned 10 years old, learned how to play the guitar. And back then, you know, all I had at one point was just a couple of cassette decks.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to play more than one instrument at a time, I'd plug the output of one deck into the microphone inputs on another deck, and then had a little Radio Shack mixer, and I added a microphone, or I'd plug in another mic and mic another guitar,
Yeah.
and I'd bounce between cassettes until it sounded like a whole band. And
Oh wow.
it actually, some of it sounded pretty good. It was a lot of compression because you automatically get some compression with cassettes.
Right.
But some of the distortion was just crazy. And I still have some of those tapes. They still work.
That's really cool.
But with music, you know, I was like, well, you know, when it came to time to go to college, I'm like, what do I want to do? And everybody said, well, you need to get a business degree because you can just fall back on that, you know. So I started getting a business degree, and I did okay, but I started getting really bored, and I'm not a guy that loves going to school that much anyway. I'd rather, you know, do something I want to do, but I knew I had to. So anyway, I ended up changing degrees and going for radio, TV, production, and communications. And that made a huge difference. And then while I was interning at a place called Texas Video and Post, that at the time did a lot of Ford commercials and just a lot of commercial stuff for TV. I met a guy named Paul Killam who was in the audio suite, and I got to talking to him and learned he played guitar and been in bands. And so I brought one of my band tapes with me.
Okay.
And one of my mixtapes, and he's like, hey, you got a pretty good ear. You want to learn how to use all this stuff? And back then, it wasn't, I mean, there's a little bit of computer stuff, but it was all outboard gear. And the place looked like, you know, the Starship Enterprise bridge. It actually did kind of look like that anyway.
Yeah.
I was like, heck yeah, I want to learn how to use stuff. So he taught me how to use the equipment there. And at the same time, ADV Films what didn't have their own studio. And so after hours at a reduced rate, they were coming in there, and he was recording stuff for them
Okay.
for dubs. And so he's like, well, hey, you can sit in for me some if you want, and they'll let me go home, you know, and you'll get some practice. And so for my internship, I ended up doing that and having a blast and getting to know the people there. And then as luck would have it, right around the time I graduated, they opened their first in-house studio and asked me to come on.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
cool.
yeah, it was totally cool. And so I was audio engineer from 95 until 98, and then moved to Austin to the Monster Island studio, a new studio they opened there. Started as audio engineer and then started directing some. And then at one point there I was directing, writing, uh, doing trailer music, you
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
like coming up with my own stuff that would kind of match it.
Right.
Extras like video extras and interviews and stuff like that. And producing. It was all kind of at the
Wow.
same time. And I had Elena Carrillo. Thank God she was with me because she did all the scheduling.
Yeah.
Wrote a lot of scripts too, and that took a lot of heat off of me there. But
Right.
then just moved on from there, directing more and more. Moved back to Houston to the main office and did Gotcha Man and Guyver Bio Boosted Armor, the Samurai X, Rurouni Kenshin OVAs.
Yeah.
Um, some of the really fun ones, you know. Uh, and then when the economy kind of crashed, I moved up to the Dallas area and started doing work with Funimation at the time, Okratron,
Yeah.
and uh, and then some remote work too, which I still do from time to time.
Right on. Right on. So you brought something up that um, kind of piques my interest because I come from that world as well, and that's music.
Oh yeah.
Um, what kind of music do you like? Do you play all of these different instruments, or was some of them, you know, like through like a program or something like that, or
Now, I mean, I can play all the instruments.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll find some, like I would use an SR-16 sometimes for my drums,
Okay. Yeah.
just because I didn't have to mic everything, and I did have a drum set for a while, but it was a friend's.
Yeah.
You but with the SR-16, I had a foot pedal I could plug in. I could choose a few different patterns and on the fly hit the foot pedal to change the pattern. So it made it a little
Okay.
more spontaneous.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did find that when I did stuff with that, I then got with real people and said, "Hey, you want to play this song?" They go, "I can't play that. The drum beat is impossible." That was a drawback, you know. But
Yeah.
other times I'd sit down and have a song in my head and play a regular drum set.
Okay.
Hopefully, remember it when I got to my guitar where the changes were.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a Yamaha 4-track cassette
There you
for
go.
you, and you could plug in 8 inputs, but you'd
Right.
have to some, you know.
Right. Right.
But that
I
was fun.
so I started out on drums as a kid. I'm actually a pastor's son, and
Oh
so
yeah.
we had all kinds of music growing up and everything. And do you prefer acoustic drums over the electric set when for actual preference of playing?
I do for playing.
Yeah.
For recording, I ended up getting what is this brand? I think it's a Alesis electric
Okay.
set, and it has the membrane head, so the stick bounces back like
Yeah.
it should. The thing I
Yeah.
really miss is the real cymbals.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, I prefer acoustic. But for recording and doing stuff around here, I use the electric. You
Yeah.
know.
So I started out, like I said, with that, and then I got a set of Roland TD5s,
Mhm.
and it was cool. I thought, oh, this is cool.
It's not
I've
the
got
same.
this. It's not. The
Yeah.
feel is just not there.
Yeah.
You've got to have that skin that you're hitting. And
Yeah.
so,
I do like being able to choose from like 50 different drum
oh
sets.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely, that is
which is
pretty cool.
nice. But there's no for me,
Yeah,
nothing better than playing a real set.
yeah,
But for music's type, I mean, when I was a kid, I'd play stuff like Jimi Hendrix, and not the hard stuff, but like Wild Thing, his
yeah,
version.
yeah.
I like a lot of distortion, or I still play stuff. Kind of runs the gamut of like some blues, some ZZ Top, some Stones,
Okay,
um, some punk rock stuff that I'd come up with. Usually is pretty funny.
yeah.
Yeah. And then some metally stuff.
All right.
I don't play a lot without a distortion box. I can. In fact, I had this beautiful twin reverb amp for a while,
Uh-huh.
a retro one,
Yeah.
and it sounded gorgeous. But I'm like, but that's not the sound I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So I just, I sold it, and right now I play through a Fender M80 200-watt amp that has built-in distortion. It sounds just like the band Rat, if you ever heard their stuff
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
It's like it's crazy, but I'll run other boxes and whatnot,
Right
and
on.
then I use GarageBand to put it all together these days.
So that's the one thing I've got a PC, so I don't have GarageBand, but that's the one thing that almost got me to where I was going to get a Mac. Right now I'm using Audacity to do all of my stuff on here,
Yeah,
but GarageBand is a really cool tool to be able to have.
it's really cool, and there's all these free plugins you can get. I mean,
Yeah.
I was used to using Pro Tools for years, and I even had the
Right.
inbox
Yeah.
that I used on my PC, but it was so limited,
Hmm.
and they want you to pay for every plugin. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not made of money, and I can't do that. But so I finally broke down when the Macs went down in price, because it used to be
Hmm.
so expensive you couldn't afford them if you didn't have a studio or something.
Right.
But and then I ran for a while. I ran Windows on a partition,
Hmm.
but that ended up getting corrupted and toasted that thing, so I quit doing that. I just I just use my work computer if I need Windows for
Yeah.
something.
So, do you have a recording booth in your home and everything that you work with, like even when you're doing stuff for, um,
For remote stuff and
for
all.
Crunchyroll or for any of those guys as well?
Yeah, I mean, they do most of their stuff in person these days, but
Right.
I'll do some remote stuff for other folks, and
Yeah.
there's a specific setup I do for that, but just on a daily basis, if I'm doing recording of music or something,
Yeah.
I'll usually, I'll use my Scarlett Focusrite eight eight channel thing and just plug everything into that,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and then use the GarageBand effects and whatnot. And then if you're doing rock and roll, by the time you get to the vocals, you don't need a booth,
That's
Gonna add
true. Yeah.
reverb anyway, so as long as the mic sounds all right, I don't care.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Um, Me, as you can see, I'm in my garage and everything. I found a way to get everything to where it sounds just right for what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
But I would love to end up doing like a bigger setup. And I've had different voice actors come on here and we've talked about like their setup. And there was one guy that I had on, and he had a very interesting thing on his website to where he actually had um, like a video and it was like, okay, well, here's what the ambient sound of my booth. This is what it sounds like in here.
Mhm.
And, he was able to show that, it was completely soundproofed and all this. And then he had his different voices that he would bring out. He's like, this is me angry, this is me doing
Yeah.
this. And I hadn't seen anybody else do something like that before.
Huh.
Um, do they ask for stuff like that a lot whenever you're, you know, trying out or, auditioning for parts?
No, I mean, not really. Usually they'll have a few lines from different parts of a script,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and if most of the time I go in, well, really these days, most of the time I go in and they already know they want to use me because they've heard other stuff I've done.
Right. Right.
But occasionally, it'll be like, here's a character, and I take all my cues
Yeah.
from the physicality of the character.
Yeah.
I say, what would I imagine coming out of that person?
Right.
Like if I was doing Mike Tyson's voice, it would not be his voice. It's like, yeah, it doesn't match. So,
Yeah.
but uh, but yeah, and usually I always tell them to him like, hey, if that's not the voice you're looking for, I love playing with voices, so tell me what
Right.
you're looking for. And sometimes we'll tweak it a little bit,
Yeah.
make it younger, make it older, less gravel, more gravel,
Hmm.
just whatever.
Were you one of those people as a kid that just did different voices, just make up different ones on the fly and stuff?
Yeah, I
Or what
mean,
actually got you to doing the voiceover side of this? Because you started out on the audio.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what was the voice that they're like, we're gonna do this, and then you started creating all these different ones.
I just started doing like background voices, like a character here, a character there. Like I'd be mixing down a show and go, "Oh, we miss these people. Let me just run in the booth." And it was really funny. One time, gosh, I want to say it might have been. Blue Seed. It was probably either Blue Seed, probably not Evangelion, maybe Blue Seed. But there was a scene where there was this construction crew
Huh?
and we missed it. And
Oh
like,
no.
man, it's not a huge scene. It's,
Yeah.
like half a minute or something, but there are all these
Right.
people. Like, okay, I can do this. So I put a delay on the record. I'd run in the booth and just do each character separately, running back and forth,
Oh wow.
different voices, and it ended up sounding pretty good. I was really proud of proud of it.
That's really
But
cool. I need to go find that so I can hear it and see if I
yeah, I'll
can.
have to see if I can figure out which one it was. But
Yeah.
yeah, and actually, the first voices I did the most of in the beginning were
Mhm.
monster voices
Okay.
because as I was mixing something, there'd be like this giant dragon or something, and in the Japanese, it just sounded like weak. It was like
Yeah.
too mixed in the background. I'm like, no, this is a really cool dragon. This has got to sound neat.
Yeah.
So I'd get the mic and like I say, I didn't have any onboard
Hmm.
effects gear. So
Right.
I'd bring guitar processors and stuff and run it through a Mackie mixer and back into the computer and
Wow.
just do all this roaring and stuff. And by the time I was done, it sounded pretty cool.
Well, you're very resourceful in that way. I can tell. Even when you're telling the story at the beginning of making your own or your own cassette tapes and stuff, you
Yeah,
found ways to make it work, even with
right.
what you had. And I mean, that's really cool. Because not a lot of people can still do that.
No, and like for reverb, we didn't have that plug-in at the
Yeah.
studio.
Yeah.
So I just copy the track down on the next track and
Hmm.
offset it by about five and then turn down the volume and it made a great
Okay.
reverb.
Wow. Wow. That's
It,
really cool.
it'd work out, or just EQ it till it sounds like a radio or something. Just sort of do it yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And now they have all these plugins that you can use for that stuff. So makes it so much easier, but it lets you appreciate that stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for sure.
what would you say is one of the proudest project that you've worked on?
Um, well, there's different ones I like for different reasons.
Uh-huh.
I think for me personally, the biggest accomplishment was doing the redub of all the episodes of Gotcha Man
Yeah.
and having the original 70s script and keeping the groovy man. We were 70s
Yeah.
for like 2.5 years,
Yeah.
and then finding voices that sounded like the ones I grew up watching.
Right.
It was really, really fun.
That's cool.
And like I say, I think it was like 2.5 years that I worked on that. And it was so rewarding to have such a great group of people to record with and see what crazy bad guy's going to be in the next episode. I think I used every director at ADV to be a crazy bad guy for me at one point or another.
Oh, that's cool.
All people in the office. And
Yeah.
then that was the first big project I got to use Ed Neal on,
Uh-huh.
who, the original hitchhiker from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
He played Berg Katze, the bad guy with the pointy ears.
Oh, wow. That's
That worked out really great.
that's
But that
cool.
one I like for those reasons. I'm proud of Samurai X, Trust and Betrayal because it made the Billboard top 10 at the time.
Hmm.
And I thought that was pretty cool, and it's beautiful soundtrack and all those OVAs, and nothing like the TV series, which a lot of people like, but it's not um, silly and you know
Right.
wacky or anything. It's pretty heavy. A few of them are super heavy.
For sure. For sure.
That was fun to play that sort of different, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Do you prefer to be behind the mic or do you prefer to be behind the mixing board?
I like both. I mean, to me, different, each thing satisfies a different thing for
Yeah.
me personally. Like I just directed a dub of a new Jackie Chan movie
Okay.
called Legend. And I love doing live action because to me it's really fun if you
Yeah.
do a good job to see someone's voice come out of a real person and not go, oh, that looks like an old Godzilla movie. That's terrible. So to me, it's like a giant puzzle, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so that was neat. But for the directing part, for the acting part, I just consider that just fun. It's
Yeah.
just nothing but fun. And with the directing and all that, you have more things you have to worry about, but it's super rewarding.
Right.
But with the acting, it's just like I'm gonna go play pinball machines for 2 hours and you know It's me, it's just fun, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually I think I saw it. You might have posted it on your Instagram page. The new Jackie Chan movie that's
Oh yeah, it's got like
yeah.
a
Uh
ear on it or something, and
yeah, yeah, and he was talking about what he does whenever he's ready to go, and he's like chop chop, or I forgot what it was that he says or
oh yeah,
something, when he's ready to go and everything.
yeah,
And so I thought that I love seeing the behind the scenes stuff when it comes to creating all of this stuff. I'm kind of moving into um, a new thing right now. I am part of something called Original Geek. We have a comic book side. Well, now we have an audio network, and we're going to
yeah,
start
cool.
creating, audio dramas and things like that that can go
Hmm.
in between the stories that we have in our comic books and everything.
Oh,
So
that's
seeing this stuff and talking to you about this, is inspiring to me to know that, even if I don't have some things, there are ways. If you are resourceful enough, you can come up with different things that you need.
yeah, and some stuff I would look for a lot when I was doing extras or some of the other things I've worked on. Um, I didn't really want to buy this massive sound library because some can be really expensive.
Right.
But there's some good sites online that you can buy some a la carte
Yeah.
that are royalty free, and
Yeah.
found stuff that I would use over and over again, and it came in really handy, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
I have for like my videos and stuff that I do on TikTok. I do pay for like a monthly fee on one that gives me everything that I need for that. But I have been looking. There's some of those. I mean, but I'm like, okay, is that a good deal? What I'm looking at,
yeah, some
because
of them
they're
are
so vast, but they're very specific too.
right.
Like you can get one that's all just action scenes, or something like
Hmm.
that. And so trying to figure out and navigate that to figure out what you need, can be
Yeah,
overwhelming, I think.
it's the same way when I used to download music samples and stuff and looking
Yeah.
for that sort of thing and environments and everything. You're like, that's cool, but would I ever use it? You know, and
Yeah.
so you just kind of prioritize, I guess.
Yeah. So another thing that you are a writer when it comes to this. You write I'm guessing you write the English dub dialogue for some of these animes, correct?
Yeah, I don't do that as often as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really time consuming,
Right.
and you know, that doing anime isn't my first job. That's a job I do on the side, so
Right.
I have to consider the time spent, you know.
Yeah.
I'd rather be having fun doing the voice stuff than uh, writing from the like the raw translation to the acting script is fun, but I like better being in the booth and like when I'm directing,
Mm-hmm.
you always have to rewrite stuff because
Right.
uh, some people talk faster than others, and if you try to slow it down or speed it up too much, it doesn't sound right.
Right. Yeah.
So you try to get the cadence of whoever you're working with and try to massage the script so that it sounds natural.
Yeah.
Or stuff might just not fit. You don't want to sound like Speed Racer and be pops going 1,000 miles an hour, like an auctioneer.
Well,
Uh,
one thing I have noticed too is they're not always the same when it comes to what you're reading on the screen and what they're actually saying.
you mean like a subtitle?
Yeah, when you have
Yeah.
subtitles on, I mean, it has the same. It's pretty much telling you the same thing. It's just said differently. And
Yeah.
I've kind of talked to some other people about that. But why exactly is that? Would you say there can be a difference?
It's because the subtitles don't match the mouth,
Right? Okay.
period.
Yeah.
And if people could read the subtitles, but they might be two sentences too short and not match the mouth at all, because when the subtitles go in, they're not concerned at all about matching the mouth.
Right. Right.
And it's not, I mean, sometimes even the Japanese doesn't match the mouth,
Right. Yeah.
depending on the type show you're working on.
Hmm.
So to me, that's more like it's not like when you watch a live action thing and it's being subtitled what the person's saying.
Yeah.
Although you'll notice if you're watching something live and it's being transcribed in real time, sometimes they miss stuff because the person's going too fast,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. So even that's not perfect, but a subtitle, and unless someone dubbed the show first
Hmm.
and then they wrote the subtitles from the dub,
Yeah.
then it would match.
Right.
But usually they do the subtitle first,
Yeah.
and then the dub comes after.
Right. So I know that you were a part of a show that's absolutely my favorite anime of all time, and
Oh,
that's Fullmetal Alchemist is by far my favorite. And I know
yeah.
you were part of you were in the movie, and then you were also in Brotherhood as well, correct?
Yeah, the guy I remember the best from Brotherhood is probably Edison.
Yeah.
He's pretty cool looking, you know.
Oh yeah.
I had Edison, Giolo, and Han
Yep.
in
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one. My son is at the point now to where I think he could appreciate that show.
Hmm.
He's 13, and he keeps me pushing me, when it comes to anime and things like that. I love watching it, but he's like, Dad, I found another one that you need to watch so we can talk about it. So I
Oh yeah.
think we're at that point now to where I think he would appreciate that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Got to be
yeah.
something a little deeper, right?
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, the storyline there is there's parts that are very, light, but the overall arc of the story is very
Mhm.
dark, and you don't want to put a young kid into that
Yeah, you don't want to
mindset.
too
So
heavy on them. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, when you get to like Shao Tucker and things like that, whenever the things that he did. So yeah, it, I could talk about that one for a long time because that's one of my favorites. Um, but what would you say is the hardest one that you've had to do when it comes to a voiceover? One that drew a lot of emotion for you, maybe.
Well, the hardest wasn't one with heavy emotion. It
Okay.
was one with just a lot of vocal strain, and that was actually a video game when I was in Borderlands.
Okay.
I was yelling my head off as
Yeah.
this battle guy.
Yeah.
I was hoarse for a few days after that. That was the craziest one. But I mean, emotionally, I've recently been able to stretch, which has been fantastic, both with Gran Torino,
Hmm.
Hero, and really some great scenes with Fujitora and One Piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's coming back, and I'm super happy and really want a Funko of that. If they'll ever make one of him, he's got the coolest collar. You got to do it, right?
They've got to do it. I mean, they're making Funkos of everything nowadays,
Yeah.
and so I've I don't know if you can see it, but I've got a ton of Funkos back here behind me and everything. I'm a little bit of a collector. I have another podcast that I kind of interact with, and I'm part of their network called the Zio to Hero podcast. Well, they do a lot of stuff with toys, and so they've sent me a lot of toys. And then now I find myself when I'm at a convention, I'm looking at the Funkos and the different things like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh well, that you know $20 that I just got for somebody buying a T-shirt, it's already gone. Great. So,
Yeah. 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 I've been lucky. I've got two direct pops that are characters I love. One's Gran Torino, and the
okay.
other one's Ultraman Ace,
Yeah.
the live action.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I used to watch Ultraman when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And then I'll sign some of the Metal Sonic ones because I was the owl in Sonic the Hedgehog, the OVA, the
Right.
movie.
Yeah.
And I don't think they'll ever make an owl, but that was a character specifically from that.
Yeah.
And I know that no one else that was in that is anywhere to be found in conventions or anything. So I say, I'll sign here and leave some space for
Yeah.
if you can get the other person.
So was
Uh,
that based off of the 93 show, the Sonic the Hedgehog, the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, that
um,
movie?
it- this one came out,
It
I
was
think
somewhere around that time, wasn't it?
yeah, it was around that time.
Yeah.
It was just a one shot,
Yeah.
they just called it the movie, but it was the anime movie.
Right. Right.
But a lot of people really, it's funny when I go to conventions, they're like, I have that. I watched that when I was a little kid. It was on
Yeah.
a white VHS, and
Yep.
it had really good music in it, and it was a fun story and pretty decent.
Yeah.
I
It,
thought,
it's funny because whenever we leave the house, we turn on the TV for our dogs and stuff. And
yeah.
recently, we've been putting it on the Sonic the Hedgehog channel, which
Oh, on
plays like
Pluto?
it plays like
Yeah.
the old TV shows and the old movies and things like that on there. And I'm like, well, he's blue, dogs can see blue, so it's a great one to put on for him. So And then I find myself when I get home, I just sit down and I'm like, oh, I've got to go do stuff, but I'm wanting to sit there and watch old Sonic the Hedgehog stuff.
It was really fun too
It,
to work on that because it was a more of a cartoony show.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, there's so few of those that you get to use those skills, and anime
right.
is more serious or just off the hook wacky here and
Yeah,
there, but to have something more charactery,
yeah, yes,
was really a blast.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, what inspiration did you draw from whenever you were coming up with the voice for Gran Torino? What was the process like for coming up with that one?
Like I say, I just look at the physicality on any character to begin with.
Yeah,
And so he's kind of crusty looking, older,
yeah,
tough, you
yeah,
know. "Oh, I figured something like this, and I think I took a little bit of the gravel out, especially when he was confused. It's like,
yeah,
"Ooh, where am I?" And then "Come on, kid, let's go for it." Just sort of a George C. Scott as Patton, and then reel it in a little bit, and sometimes there'll be actors I'll think of that I like that I'll draw from.
right,
Other times, it's just like the character looks so much like a certain voice would come out that I'll do one and then go, oh yeah, that's it.
right,
Like
right.
other one, no, that's it. It's a little, you know. Also, there's a lot of characters that if it's been a while,
Yeah,
I'll be like, let me hear a recording of what I did before because I
right.
don't know what voice I use, but like there's Wakaba for Fairy Tale.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the pompadour and everything, and the wears the furs
Yep,
jackets. I
yep.
looked at I said, he kind of looks like a wise guy. I think he's a wise guy. What do you think, huh? And so and he had the cigarette, so it had to be a little, a
Right.
little bit smoky in there.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And then there was a really fun character I did in Earth SOS, Project Blue Earth SOS, which was a takeoff on like a 1950s space Mars and what is it, Mars Attacks type show.
Okay, yeah.
Really, really good, great animation. But there is this great big guy that's a librarian, and he's wearing like a white coat. He's not a librarian. He's in the library, but he's a scientist.
Yeah.
And he finds this kid in the library looking up stuff that he's like about some you know, magic stuff or something. And I said, "Oh, this guy totally looks like he would be British to me because he just looked like it." And
Yeah.
so I said, Benny Carter, what are you doing here in the library? And they were like, "Hey, yeah, that works." I said, "Come over here, my boy. Let me show you something." Here's a book. So yeah, just have fun with it.
Definitely. I mean, I can tell just from talking to you about this and seeing, you talk about it, that this is something that you definitely enjoy. And, being able to do something like this and enjoy it makes it all the more better.
Oh yeah.
Being able to love what you do is that's everybody's dream. And so you being able to do that is amazing.
Yeah, I every time I get to work on a show, I'm just so incredibly happy because, you know, uh to me it's not a chore in any way. It's
Right.
just fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that if whatever the character looks like, if it's in my vocal range, that I'll come up with something.
Right.
I just love playing. Sometimes I'm actually disappointed because I'll be like, "Sure, you don't want me to try something else?" And nope, that's it. I'm like,
Oh.
"Okay." One guy did tell me, "Hey, Charlie, are you ever going to use your normal voice in a show? Because I don't think you ever have." And I said, "I don't know."
It hasn't came up yet. So so when you're not in the studio and you're not doing voiceovers or mixing or directing or anything like that, what do you like to do on your spare time?
Oh, I love going to live music.
Okay.
Um, Good places not too far away in the DFW area.
Yeah.
Um, I like movies, seeing movies. I like going to different places. I love taking road trips, but I don't get to too often because you have to plan that out,
Right.
because schedules and all that. But
Yeah.
and then for my other job, I do enjoy my other job. That's my 9 to 5, which is I'm a audio video designer
Okay.
for um, NFL stadiums and
Oh,
colleges and municipal. I've worked on a few fire training facilities and a police station and a lot of colleges and universities. And
wow.
we don't have to buy any of the equipment. We don't have to install any of it. We just help the architect figure out what equipment his client needs, where it needs to be installed, how it needs to be put together. So then after something's built, we go and check it against our plans and see if everything works. Someone else installs it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Try to get them, what they need. Sometimes people don't know what they need, and you just have to talk to them and say, well, how are they going to use it?
Right.
You might not need the Star Wars thing. You might just need something that'll get a certain job done. You never use all these other features.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, or someone may have tried to sell them something that was way overblown. No, you don't need that.
That upsell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Or they still want to, or the other direction, they want to keep using an overhead projector and a cassette
Yeah.
deck. It's like, nah, let's help you out with that a little bit.
Oh yeah. Well, what you don't want is you press that cassette tape deck, and I
Hmm.
remember as a kid, the using those, and your tape would get eaten,
Oh
and then
yeah,
you have to wind it back up. Sometimes you was able to get it right. I
yeah.
remember one time I was a big audio drama fan when I was a kid. There was one that I listened to called Adventures in Odyssey, and
Hmm.
it was based out of Colorado Springs. It had Townsend Coleman in it. It was one of the voice actors, and there's the guy that was the voice of Otis from Andy Griffin was on this, and
Oh, that's
it
cool.
was a really cool show. And I listened to these tapes all the time. We had a lady that went to our church who would give me the cassettes that they didn't use anymore.
All
And
right.
yeah, and so that's really how I first got into it. But I remember I listened to this one so much and it got eaten, well, and then
Hmm.
it tore in half. Well, my dad tried to piece it back together, and there's a whole section of it where he did it backwards. So
Oh,
everything on that part is completely backwards. The first time I heard it, I was like, something's wrong,
right.
because it kind of scared me, if I'm being honest, because
Yeah,
I
it sounds creepy. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. This backwards, I mean, that's what they used to say, oh, the records, you play them backwards and it has a secret message. These didn't
Yeah.
have
Oh,
a
yeah.
secret message. It was just creepy. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love those old radio shows and stuff too. I
yeah,
used to listen to those when I was a kid, on
yeah,
cassette.
yeah, yeah.
I've got to work on a couple of radio type dramas with not many, but they were fun, some books on tape things.
Okay.
That's so much fun. And I don't know if you've ever heard of one called, I think it was called the Goons or the Goon Show. But if you can find it, it's got Peter Sellers in it,
Okay.
did
It
the
sounds
chemistry.
familiar.
It
I'll have
is
to look it
so
up.
funny. Oh my gosh. And it's so inventive and just ridiculously funny. It's
Yeah.
from England. They did, this radio show.
Okay.
It was just called The Goons, you know, but
I,
it's good.
I used to also love going to like Cracker Barrel. Then they had the old time radio shows that you could buy on cassette and you could buy them on CD and stuff. And
That gift shop is better than any of the food.
oh, for sure. Yeah.
It's like I could spend an hour in the gift shop.
Yeah. And I used to go and get the like the old Red Skelton stuff,
Oh
because
yeah.
started out, he was radio before he was television and everything. And then, I've got like the old Kingfish, Abbott and Costello stuff, all these different things that were audio series. And I
Yeah.
loved listening to that stuff. And I
Love
even
the Shadow and the Orson Welles stuff was really great.
yeah, yeah, those were really awesome. And then they had the like CBS would have like the old like horror stories and stuff,
Yeah.
that they would do, and you could get those, and just the way they even talked.
Through the creaking door.
Yes, I love that.
That's a place where I got a lot of voice influence was from like Vincent Price and Boris Karloff movies and
Yeah.
had really charactery crazy voices, and I'd be like, oh man, I love that. That's so cool. you know.
Well, and they would use words that people don't use anymore, like
Oh
they
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
call them ghosts, they called them apparitions, and it
Specters.
was so eloquent the way that they spoke, and
Yeah.
I just loved it. I still go back and listen to this stuff all the time.
When I was a little kid, my mom at one point I got because I loved all the campy movies, she got me an Edgar Allan Poe book.
Yeah.
She would read Edgar Allan Poe to me as bedtime stories, and that's not easy reading. I mean, that's very like tough language, but she'd read it to me and I'd say, well, what does that mean? And she'd tell me, and it was actually great for my vocabulary as a kid,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it wasn't, you know, see pug run,
Right.
Ask if I'm a Matilda or whatever it was, What's all that?
So you're talking about you go to conventions and stuff. Is that something that you've been able to do quite a bit here recently?
Yeah, I mean, I never used to go when I was full-time directing,
Yeah.
because, I wanted the weekends for me and my wife and stuff.
Right.
Um, I've really enjoyed in the last few years getting invited to different ones because it gives me a chance to meet people who enjoy the stuff I work on, and
Right.
you're in the studio, you have a good time and you think it turned out good, but it's great to hear somebody who actually directly enjoyed it.
Right. Yeah.
I love meeting people anyway.
Do you have a favorite story of an interaction from maybe somebody?
Um, I mean, you meet interesting people.
Definitely.
There was a guy, and I want to say it was St. Louis, maybe, who former military,
Okay.
and he has this backpack full of like weights or something, and
Oh.
they would go on these hikes, and what do they call it? There's a specific word for these hikes with the weight on their
Hmm.
back, but it's almost always other former military,
Hmm.
and it sort of keeps you in shape. It's like not
Yeah.
just light weights, but some of these things are really heavy.
Right.
But I was like, well, I never heard of that. And he was telling me all about it. And I thought that was kind of neat. And then you just meet people from all over.
Right.
There's nothing really that stands out. I mean, there's some things, some people, costumes you see that stand out and you go, what the heck is that? In fact,
Yeah.
there was one time it was I think it was in Houston, and it was kind of slow that day and there were people walking by. And so I started thinking of song names
Hmm.
after what I was seeing.
Yeah.
You know, I got some pretty funny ones, that probably weren't something you would tell them to see their face, but it's like, okay, what in the world.
Yeah. Well,
I'm in a garbage bag, but I don't smell, stuff like
I will say that my wife and I, that is one of our favorite things when we go to a convention.
oh yeah.
Here recently, we've been able to set up at quite a few different ones and, have my own booth and things like that. And
Mhm.
just being able to people watch, it's so much fun,
Yeah, and some of the work people put into just
yeah.
the
Yeah.
outfits is really amazing.
And I always try to get pictures of those whenever I see the ones that are like really cool. I'm like, hey, stop, stop, stop. Come
Yeah, I
here.
wave them over to my booth so I can get Instagram shots and stuff of.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm like, hey, I'll tag you and everything. Just let me know. And
Yeah. Yeah.
part of the fun of it. But if someone asked me that's never been to a convention, what is that part of it like? And I'm like, it's like going to a Halloween party and you don't know what anyone's dressed like.
Yeah.
Because there's too many titles. I mean, some of
For
them you might
sure.
recognize, but like if
Right.
it was My Hero or something or Dragon
Yeah.
Ball, but there's some that are just like, man, I have no idea. But
Yeah.
there's always somebody that does know, and they'll say, hey, what's that? Oh, yeah, that's this show. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton. I've noticed one, and I don't know if it's just a certain group that does this. I should ask my buddy. I have a buddy who runs. So my podcast is if you give a dad a call, or if you give a dad a, or mine is if you give dad a podcast. I have
Yeah.
two other friends that run shows as well. If you give a dad a YouTube channel, and if you give a dad a cosplay, I need to ask
Okay.
him this one,
Yeah, I bet
but
he knows.
there is a group that they it's like technology based and everything. Like they'll look like a robot, but it's also made out of like flowers and like plants and
I
plant
haven't
based
seen
and
one of
stuff.
those. Yeah.
There was a convention I went to in Neosho, Missouri at the beginning of this year. It was, I think, February 1st is when I went to that one. It's called ArtCon. And there was a girl there, and like she was wearing a dress, and then she had like this TV, it looked like, for a head, but there were
Oh, I've
like
seen one of
plants and
those.
stuff growing out of it. And
Really?
so I don't know where that one comes from, but like you said, you're going to find all kinds of stuff that you have no idea.
You don't think it was just practicing for the Rose Bowl parade or something? You know,
Hey, maybe, I don't know.
Garden TV
There you go.
service. So yeah, it's entertaining for sure.
Yeah, definitely. What is the weirdest thing that you've been asked at a convention?
Oh, at a convention. Um, mm, I mean, it's kind of weird when someone asks you about a character and they say, "Well, what does this character do on these days?" And it's like actual questions for a
Yeah,
fictional character. You're like,
right. Yeah,
well, I'm not sure, I might make something up, but
yeah.
just be like, not nothing.
Right. Oh, well, what did Gran Torino did? Because he wasn't in these episodes here. What was he
Yeah,
doing
what's
during those times? Yeah, I get what you're saying. What
he
you're
doing
saying.
in the meantime? I'm like,
Yeah.
just sitting around waiting for the call. Yeah. But yeah, most of the questions are, how'd you get into voice
Yeah.
acting
Right.
and what are some shows and this sort of regular stuff.
Definitely.
Or if
Um,
someone's in music, I could talk to them about that for half an hour.
heck yeah. So you said you like to go to concerts. Have you been to any cool concerts recently?
Yeah, let's see. Well, I've got some coming up that are really fun. That should be good. There's
Okay.
ACDC's coming to town.
Oh,
I've seen
nice.
a bunch of times, and I don't know if they're going to go around again, so I got to see them this time.
Right. Right.
There's this band called Kraftwerk that's from the 70s, and they're this German band, and
Mhm.
they used to make their own instruments out of electronics like
Oh,
back in the 70s, which is crazy.
yeah.
But they did this whole album called Autobahn, which is about the Autobahn.
Yeah.
But they reconstructed the sound of cars going by, and everything's real precise and like sounds great on headphones. And they came out with
Yeah.
other albums. Each album had a different, like one was about radio, and one was about robots, and one was about computers, and they put on I've never got to see them live, but they put on an amazing multimedia show, and it's all real innovative. So I'm looking forward to going to that one.
Right on.
But I got to see pretty much all the bands I grew up loving that hadn't met unfortunate ends before I
Yeah.
had a chance to see. Couldn't see Jimi Hendrix or Jim Morrison, but I did see the Stones and all
Yeah.
these different rock bands and stuff. So yeah, I even like seeing tribute bands if they're good.
Yeah.
There's one band called Led Zeppelin too that sounds just like Led Zeppelin, and they're great. And they've been
Okay.
playing longer than Led Zeppelin played because they've been around a long time.
So there's a more recent band, and they sound just like Led Zeppelin. I can't remember their
Oh
name.
yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Um,
You got a crazy name.
yeah.
You really young guys.
Yeah, they are. And they're always like, no, we don't sound anything like Led Zeppelin. I'm like,
Is
yeah,
that
you
just
do.
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I wanted to see them too. Maybe I'll get to see them. They haven't been on tour for a while, but they're a great band.
Greta
Uh,
Van Fleet.
that's it, Van
Yeah.
Fleet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I love their music. They sound amazing.
singer's got some pipes on him,
Oh, yeah. Very talented.
crazy loud.
Yeah.
But yeah, great band. I like a lot of new bands that remind me of old bands. Like there's a band called Blackberry Smoke that sounds like if they were a young Leonard Skinner. They're from Georgia.
Okay.
They're great. I mean,
You-
great guitar player and everything. I'm going to be seeing them in a few months. I liked Wolf Mother, but I don't think they're making new stuff. But they sounded like if you put Ozzy Osbourne with Led Zeppelin, and they're
Nice.
from Australia. They're really good.
Yeah. You said that
Um,
one's Blackberry Smoke?
yeah, they're
Okay.
great.
Okay.
They're
I'm
awesome.
writing them down so I can look these up because I'm a music guy. I'm always looking for new music.
Yeah.
If you look at my liked playlist on Spotify, it will go from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other.
Oh
I'll
yeah.
have
Yeah.
I'll have Greta Van Fleet, and then I'll play Luciano Pavarotti. It
Oh
goes
yeah.
all over the board. So I'm always loving to find new
Play
bands.
Dave Brubeck, or I'll play Mozart, or I might play
Yeah.
uh the Sex Pistols or something, whatever
Yeah,
mood I'm in,
exactly. Yeah.
you know.
So we're kind of coming up close to a close here. I got just a couple more questions I'll ask you.
Sure.
Do you have any events that are coming up that maybe you want to talk about?
Yeah, in fact, let me see what the date is here. I've got the Garden State Anime Fest in Augusta, New Jersey on May 3rd and 4th, which is pretty neat. It's at the fairgrounds, even though the fair won't be open. It's kind of a cool, venue to go to, something different.
Definitely.
That's the next one.
Okay.
I've just recently been to a few, but I'm trying to line up some more.
Yeah.
You people out there, let me know.
And there's a ton of them too. Like you said, you're in Texas. Texas has a
Mhm.
plethora of, you know, different conventions and stuff
Which is
going
funny
on.
because most of the ones I've been to in the last few years have been outside of Texas
Really?
and all over the place. There's some great guys that run a talent agency called Anime Enthusiast United.
Hmm.
Just great guys, and they've been getting me some gigs here and there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
I,
contact.
oh, yeah. You heard it, folks. Hit him up, get him on there. So,
Or send me a Facebook or a Instagram message, and I usually answer.
but hey, that's how we got here.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So, if people want to follow you, how can they do that?
Well, yeah, just Director Man Charlie on Facebook, and then Instagram. I have to look at it. You might have it on yours where you can read it.
It's the
Or actually, well, I usually have it on my little paper
Charlie
on the,
Man, the Charlie
yeah,
Man anime.
Charlie Man Anime. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Okay.
And then I'm also on there's Facebook, that, and then MySpace.
Wait,
There is a MySpace. I've looked at it. They don't go away. They just haunt you forever.
oh
And it was
gosh.
actually better than Facebook because you could put music on it. You could do the
Yeah.
backgrounds different.
Yeah.
You
I
know, I used
I
to,
was
that's
there
what I
for it,
did.
man. I remember I had all of it. People hated going to my page
Yeah.
because there was so much that their computer would freeze up.
Right. But it was so much more tweakable. It
It
was
was.
it was
Yeah.
really your space.
Yeah. I actually had a link to my Facebook page on my MySpace page.
Yeah.
So I remember all of that. Yeah. So if you could give somebody one piece of advice that you wish that you would have got when you first started out in this business, what would that be?
Um, I would say, like, if you want to get into voice acting, you have to have two things that you just can't do without. Number one is a voice.
Yeah.
Number two, you have to know how to act.
Yeah.
And everyone has a voice.
Right.
So don't worry about doing voices because, like, when I'm looking for a cast, I originally am looking for a person's natural voice usually. And if they can do other voices, that's cool, but I'd rather use their voice if it fits, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So don't concentrate on doing voices, concentrate on acting, you know?
All right.
And like a lot of people that I would hire in the Austin area were from the theater because they were used to projecting their voice mostly without a mic. So if they were in a loud scene in a show, they could project without yelling or screaming.
Right.
They were they're used to memorizing lines, which you don't really need for anime because you've got the script right there in front of you.
Yeah.
But and they were used to being versatile. And if they were actually in a play that I saw, that means that they beat out some other people that didn't get the part.
This is true.
So,
Yeah.
if you can't act and you can't get in the play, then you're probably not right for anime because, it's a different thing, but it uses a lot of the same skills.
For sure. For sure. Do you have any final thoughts before we get you off of here?
Hell final. If you ever hear from me again. No, just that I just love hearing from people and uh, absolutely like being somebody who puts a little joy in somebody else's life, depending on the parts and everything like that. And
Yeah.
I'm so happy to have been contacted by you, and keep enjoying the shows, keep looking for new ones, and I'll keep making crazy voices, and we'll all have a good time.
All right, Charlie, it has been great talking to you tonight. I will talk to you for a few more minutes after we end this recording and everything. But we're going to say goodbye here for now. And thank you again. Like I said, this was my 3-year anniversary episode. So I am very happy that I was able to get you on here for that.
I'm honored to be a part of it.
Thanks. Have a good one.
You too.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast.